Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson, and today I have two individuals I've been wanting to speak with for some time. We've been trying to coordinate and get our schedules together, and these two ladies have been doing something that is really profound. And I don't want to take away from it too much, but I want to jump right into their stories and get to understand kind of what's happening. So for those of you that are at your kind of wits end weight loss, or have been through the ringer or maybe you're just starting, you just want to do it right the first time, I think you're going to really enjoy this particular podcast. So let's jump right in. And Laura, let's start with you. Can you give me some background on your particular story?
Sure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk. I'm excited to share just the hope that I have now. I am 60 years old. We kind of start with our numbers to give you an idea of where we're from. I'm 60 years old. I'm 5'9", and I found FA, Food Addicts in Recovery Anonymous, in 2017, and I came in at 227 pounds. My high weight, though, is 256, and I've been maintaining 100. I'm 141 now. So for the past 4 years, I've kept this 85 pounds off, and it has been such a freedom to have, to not be carrying the weight around, but also not live with the guilt and the shame, which was a real big part of my story, because I ate in secret and people didn't know. I mean, people could look at me and could see, but they didn't have any idea about what I was doing when people couldn't see.
Sure.
And it was something that, and I'm a person of faith. I have a strong faith, and yet that was one thing that I didn't go to God for help. And I thought, I can do this myself and I'm fine. And so, I was raised in a kind of typical normal family, I guess, normal mom, dad, dad was an accountant kind of thing. And I didn't have problem with weight as a child, and had a kind of a rough first marriage. I got married young at 19, and just from being kind of pushed away by him, I turned to food for the love and the comfort that I would have wanted to have from a husband. And I ended up having children. 3 children were close in age, and just felt so bad about myself, because I should know better,
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to spend money on diet programs and things. That was something part of people's stories. But I did go to Overeaters Anonymous in 1990 that I heard about in Dear Abby, and was able to have some relief from that. But I lost pounds, and I got down, and I still going back into the food again. And I kind of did that seesaw thing for a while, until, actually, kind of a long story, but I ended up my husband left me, and after 24 years, and I got, after 4 years of being single, I got married again to someone who married me even larger. I was large. I was over 200 pounds when we met. And I thought, well, now I'll be able to lose weight, because it was all this other guy's fault that I was heavy. I couldn't stop eating. Yeah. But it wasn't his fault. It was me. And there's something in my body that, as far as my story, I can't do the just one. I can't have just the one piece of really good chocolate a week or something. If I start, I can't stop. And it's horribly demoralizing and shameful. And I felt very alone. And to be able to know that when I found FA and I heard about this, and we do have in-person meeting, one in Tacoma, one in Seattle, and I found it and walked into the room, and there were people who were, we call it the right size bodies, not necessarily just thin, but normal, happy looking people who'd found an answer.
Sure.
This is what I want, and it doesn't cost anything. That was something that was exciting for me. Just knowing that it wasn't like Weight Watchers or something, which there's nothing wrong, and that works for people great if they're not food addicts. But
Yeah.
it's really hard to, I mean, I just stopped counting points when I ran out of points. You
Mm.
just don't write it down. Again, that part of being honest about other things in my life, but not about food.
Sure.
And so part of this, a real important part of this, besides the spiritual part of it, which is the whole surrendering, is having a sponsor who is just another person who volunteers. Again, no one's getting paid. And I got a name of someone, and she just called me at 5:30 in the morning. And I did. And she told me what to eat. And we have a food plan, but nothing magical or unique, just regular grocery store, regular food, but weighed and measured, and then not eating in between meals. I was able to do something and she said, get down on your knees and ask God for help. And I write down your food the night before and commit it to me in the morning, and just these basic steps we follow. And all of a sudden that one day I couldn't stop eating, and the next day I could. And it was only with God's help for surrendering. Sure. And that was 2017. And it's been amazing. I've had a couple what we call breaks of things, of doing something outside the food plan, having a bite of something in between or whatever. But I haven't had any flour or sugar. And I don't even miss it. I really don't. It goes away when you're not for me, when I wasn't imbibing in the substance anymore.
May I ask a couple questions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we have this kind of getting married at 18, and that's, let's see, that is like 1980.
It was 1982. I was 19. It was 1982. Yeah.
Okay. And so for the next, 8 years, you just started putting on weight, true?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then at 90, you're like, I need to do something. Mm-hmm. And then you started. So how many programs, may I ask, do you think you've done?
I've only done Overeaters Anonymous and this one, and I did Weight Watch successfully once. And I actually lost 50 pounds of Weight Watchers at one time.
Yeah.
And that actually worked for me at that moment. That time it did.
But didn't last.
No.
Got it. And then what was the realization when you realized, hey, I married somebody else, that it didn't change? It's still me.
Right. I don't know. It was just I started to eat. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's a compulsion. It's an addiction, and is how I dealt with emotions. It's how I dealt with sadness, different things, and we have different stories of how and when we. With me, I was not a drive-through person. People will tell different stories, but I know how to bake and I know how to cook. And my husband worked weird hours, and I could cook a large batch of something, bake something, eat it all, have it done, cleaned up, put away before he got home. He had no idea how much I had food stashed in the car. I had food stashed, at work, different places that he had no idea what I was doing. He could see me eat quantity times of things, but he didn't know where.
That's awesome. So, Julie, let's get into your story. Julie, what's happened, and tell me kind of the ins and outs and the nitty gritty.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would just want to say thank you, as Laura did, for the opportunity to share our experience about this, what feels like a miraculous recovery from, a real state of hopelessness, a real state of despair with food, with a relationship with food. So I am, as Laura said, we start with our numbers, which is a very strange thing to do when, for me, when I was really overweight. I was horrified when people went into the front of the room of our 12-step meetings and shared their actual number. I mean, we all lie. We all lie about what our weight was on our driver's license. We all weighed, 50 pounds less than what we actually weighed on our driver's license. But anyway, we start with our numbers as a way to sort of demonstrate or display the physical recovery that takes place with rigorous membership. So I am 52 years old. I was born in 1970, and I have always had what I believe to be an abnormal relationship with food, a curiosity, a desire to eat more, I, very early on had my mother in particular would try to steer me away from sweet food, from, really fatty food, because I was an overweight little child, and I have, a picture book to show the progression of my size over time. So the top weight that I ever saw on a scale was 235 pounds. And I'm 5'6", and today I maintain a weight usually between 125, around 127 and 130. And I've maintained that weight for well over a decade. And I came into FA specifically in October of 2005, after a couple months after my third and final child was born. And I had been in some relapse with my food. I had come into another food program, another 12-step food recovery program, and it had, as I said in the beginning, I have always known that I've had this abnormal relationship with food. Growing up, I ate large quantities. I binged. I would stealthily steal food. As soon as I was old enough to babysit, I was eating your food. You would hire me to watch your kids, and I would put them to bed and pilfer through your cupboards and try to find, the good stuff. And, as soon as I had money in my pocket from jobs and that sort of thing, I found my way to convenience stores and grocery stores and was buying my own stashes and really hiding food the way one would envision an alcoholic hiding bottles, stashing bottles away so that I could eat in secret, eat in private, and that sort of thing. So I did try diets, different kinds of diets, but I think I always, in my heart of hearts, knew that I had a problem with sweets and certain kinds of food. So it was really about not eating those foods that get me started on a bender. And, I tried going to therapy. I tried, it wasn't called this at the time, but I tried essentially what's now today we call intuitive eating, where I really had a strong focus at trying to legalize all the foods that were so tantalizing to me that I couldn't put them down. I tried to experiment with how to eat them, how to eat small amounts, how to, cut slices of pizza into little squares so that I was really paying attention to my hunger and full cues and triggers. And that stuff, those triggers, those cues in me are just, I don't know what to say about them. They feel like they're either not there or they're somewhat broken, or, I can't speak to the science behind it, only as a layperson, but it's different for me. It's different for me. Once I start, I can't predict or control how much I'm going to eat and where it's going to take me. And so I did a lot of what Laura described. I lied. I hid. I made promises all the time that I was going to stop forever. I would throw food out, and then I would go back into the garbage and find it. And I know it's, embarrassing to share about to an interviewer, not knowing where the interview goes and who's going to listen. But because there will be people who hear this kind of behavior and roll their eyes and not really understand. But my hope is that if your listeners do have this experience that, that have been grappling with how to eat intuitively, or how to only eat 2 cookies, or how to only eat 1 slice of birthday cake, and then not be obsessed with getting alone with it later on, and when will the people leave the party so I can have the rest of the cake,
Sure.
that we may have an answer for you. So anyway, I've really enjoyed, we don't put a whole lot of focus on what we actually do and don't eat once we stop the addictive loop, because as Laura mentioned, once we actually put the addictive foods down, and we do believe, and this is sort of a new and up and coming idea in the popular press. I think science is looking at this now, and of course we don't speak for science. We're not scientists, but But I think popular press is kind of getting on board a little bit here with the idea that certain foods can be addicting, that we have abnormal reactions to certain trigger foods. And that is experientially true for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, so once I'm able to put down those foods, as an alcoholic will put down the booze, the problem essentially gets removed, and I'm able to focus on a day at a time other things that are up in my life that may make me feel like a snack, that make me, sort of then deal with like the emotional triggers. But I'm unable to really look at my emotional eating or my desires to eat for, I guess, in response to difficult or challenging life circumstances when I'm still deep in the addictive eating loop, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so for both of you, do you feel like there's been people just about with every different type of scenario where they were born overweight, they were always overweight, and all of a sudden they found you guys, and it's like, hey, I can totally do this, and they reach their goal weight and they stay there. I mean,
that's me.
That's you. Okay, I wondered, because that's kind of what it sounded like. Yep.
Yeah, that is me. I mean, there were times when my sort of top normal was about 180 pounds, but I